You're watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of Inside Automotive right here in the CBT Automotive Network. There's still a lot of unknown things about the tariffs and what's coming out of Washington from Trump's tariffs. But joining us now with his perspective on this situation is Marc Cannon, former AutoNation executive and founder of MGC2 Marketing. So Marc, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule there to join us on the show and talk about the tariff situation. I mean, here you are, you spent, 30 some years, I think, with AutoNation in their C-suite. And you saw all the ups and downs through 2008, 2009, and then, of course, with COVID and so many other ups and downs along the way. But what say you on this tariff situation? What's your message to the automotive community?
So, you think about it, Jim, we've been through tsunamis, we've been through COVID. None of those were self-inflicted.
Yeah.
And we sit here today with a self-inflicted problem, of which, by the way, even craziness took place today. I mean, how timely is this? Everybody's getting ready to plan for the worst. And all of a sudden now we've got a 90-day pause.
Right.
And what's really crazy about this is, how is anybody to plan if you don't know what to plan for?
Right.
So what are we going to get to 90 days and this whole thing was going to be a joke, it was going to be a hoax, and it's going to be over with? Or are we going to be right back where we are and say, hey, okay, now we're going to slap tariffs on everybody? You can't plan a business and operate on chaos, and that's what we're getting from the White House.
Right. What do you say, though, to those dealers that are out there that say, well, this is exactly what we knew Trump was going to do, and he's got to do it, and we got to give him some leeway here and some leash, so to speak, to do what he's got to do because it is an unfair balance of trade?
Well, there were so many dealers that went all in on Donald Trump.
Oh yeah.
And maybe it's time you step up and say, maybe I didn't make the right decision. Maybe this wasn't where I wanted to be. Look, Donald Trump talked about tariffs, but there were a lot of people caught up about tax cuts, and he's a businessman and he's going to stimulate the economy, and Kamala is going to take us back, and all the other nonsense that you hear. Because look, a lot of dealers skew conservative and conservative Republican.
Sure.
But now you've got chaos. Let's be honest, dealers are really good operators, but it's kind of hard to operate a business when you don't know. Or how would you like to be Jaguar Land Rover and you're not going to get any vehicles?
That's right.
So then how do you sell cars if you don't have cars?
That's right.
I mean, I don't think this is what they bought. And by the way, I think that a little honesty would be that this is chaos and it's hard to operate in chaos. It was bad enough COVID was chaos, but again, it happened. Tsunamis, chaos. Bankruptcy of a big financial, chaos. But this is completely conflicted. I mean, yes, we need to make some changes. There's no question about it. But let's have an organized, thoughtful, systematic way of doing it. I mean, you read about slapping tariffs on Israel, who said prior to the tariffs that they're going to change their tariffs.
Yeah.
I mean, help me understand the thought process. And dealers, come on, this is easy for you to navigate? I don't think so.
The uncertainty is what's got everybody puzzled on this, because as you said, 1 minute it's one thing, the next minute it's a 90-day pause on tariffs. I think he did mention not on autos, but nevertheless, you just don't know what's coming out of the White House next on this topic. But as an auto guy, as a car guy yourself, what would you be telling your stores today? I mean, just to kind of stay the course, and what do you do in this case if you can't change the president's mind on the tariff situation?
Well, you got a couple of things that goes on. You got to figure out what your costs are going to be.
Yeah.
You're going to cars are going to go up in price. There's no question about it. Parts are going to go up in price. You've got to decide what you're going to do with your SG&A, with your overhead. Mm-hmm. How are you going to do that? What are you going to do with your marketing budget?
Yeah.
How are you going to talk about tariffs? I've heard some dealers that I've talked to who are thinking of putting a line that says, tariff. So you know what the cost was of that tariff on your new car. Mm-hmm. So it's a very, very tough decision to make. But there's no question you're going to have to change your strategy.
Yeah.
And think about it. The industry has really gotten healthy. We've had a great recovery from COVID. Mm-hmm. Okay, cars are lasting longer, but still, we've really had a great recovery. And now you've got chaos. And by the way, interest rates are not helping you.
That's right. That's right.
So it's a double sword here.
Yeah.
And to plan for something like this, you got to have a plan A, B, and C. And now you're sort of in no man's land a little bit too, because okay, some of the tariffs are on, some of the tariffs are off, but you don't know exactly what's going to happen the next day. And that's the key issue.
Yeah, no question about it. Now, we just finished an incredible quarter, specifically an incredible March. There's dealers out there that have said to me, we just came off of a great March, record-breaking month for the auto industry, and as we start to work through the inventory, which is about 2 months, maybe 3 months in some cases, some brands that of units that are sitting on the lots that are tariff-free. But he felt as though as we work through that inventory and it gets closer to these tariffs actually hitting and these cars now starting to come in at the higher prices, that's when all of a sudden I think the dealers, I'm quoting him, that's when the dealers will feel different about the Trump tariffs.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you're looking the end of May, June 1.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a reckoning because you are going to wake up and it's going to be a whole different game.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, let's be honest, the OEMs are not going to eat the price. They're not going to eat the cost of this thing.
Right.
It's going to get passed on to the dealers. And I don't know any dealer that's not going to pass it on to the consumer.
Right.
So the consumer's going to pay more.
Yeah.
Dealers are going to pass it on. It's going to be more expensive. And there's going to be a wake-up call at the end of May and June.
That's right.
And we'll see how people feel then. And look, dealers are great business people. They're great operators. They're probably some of the most successful retailers of any type of retailer.
Yeah.
But you got to know what to plan for. And let's say you don't have any cars on your lot. Now you're completely service reliant or used car reliant or collision reliant.
That's right.
There you go. You're changing your whole game.
Yeah. And used cars, I mean, to touch on that for a minute, the value of used cars has already shot up. We're already seeing it at the auctions and such, and it's going to wreak havoc on the used car market as well for the same reasons.
It'll be interesting to see how the franchise dealers respond, but it's also going to be very interesting to see how Carvana and CarMax respond.
Yeah.
Right? How they respond to this. Do they buy like crazy now and stock up to make sure they've got a decent amount of inventory? Do they overpay?
Right.
They've had that game before and it hasn't worked out.
Yeah.
How do they handle this? And are they in the driver's seat or not in the driver's seat? It's hard to tell, again, because you got to be able to plan.
Yeah.
I think the big winner could be service.
Yeah.
If people have to hold on to their cars, they're going to have to get them fixed and they're going to have to keep them up.
That's right.
That could be a plus for everybody. But again, the used car stores, CarMax and Carvana, don't have a service business.
That's right.
But for franchise stores, it could be a robust time for service, which by the way, has been doing very well over the last 3 or 4 years.
That's right. And like we saw through COVID, because of COVID, it put a pressure on the used car market. We're doing that all over again. Obviously, we're also short of the lease vehicles coming off of lease because during COVID, we weren't leasing as much. So it's kind of like the perfect storm here on used cars. And then it's a question, if you've got those big retailers like CarMax and Carvana out there, raising their hand at every single auction, it's tougher. It's even that much tougher for today's retail dealer out there that says, hey, I'm in a, where are we going to go with these used cars? We're going to be offering sticker price pretty soon for, what the car retailed for when it was brand new.
Yeah. And by the way, think about how good the industry's gotten with We'll Buy Your Car.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, that whole model changes now also.
Yeah.
Because how many people are going to be selling their car?
Good point. Good point.
Some people might need it for money, but how many people are going to be selling their car or they're going to be holding on to it to see what happens?
Yeah.
If you've got an off lease and you've got a third car in your house and your car is going off of lease and you really don't want to pay an extra $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 on a new car, you might drive that car that you could have put into a We'll Buy Your Car program.
Yeah.
So it's just an unsettling time.
Yeah.
And again, look, dealers knew what was coming because Donald Trump has told us so much about what he was going to do all along.
I know.
But it's the chaos that goes with it.
Yep.
And most dealers don't operate in chaos.
No.
They're thoughtful about their business plans. And they might not say it publicly because, they don't want to speak up. But the fact of the matter is they didn't bet on this kind of chaos.
Right.
And it's very, very hard to run a business in a chaotic situation. By the way, let's remember how chaotic it was during the pandemic.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I know. Let me ask you this. When Donald Trump comes out, we don't know the circumstances really because we're not inside the Oval Office. But if you listen to what he says and if you believe what he says, then there are just, 40, 50, 60 companies and countries coming to him saying, hey, we want to negotiate. We want to negotiate. So he's already kind of taking an early victory lap on this to say, hey, it's already working. All of these countries are coming to us and wanting to negotiate their tariffs. Do you think at the end of the day, this really could be a huge win for Donald Trump given, the next 60 or 90 days?
First of all, I don't believe that many countries are coming to him. Okay. I don't believe that. And by the way, the big part of the game is China.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
That's right.
China's the big part of the game in Europe, Canada, and Mexico.
Right.
China's a big part of the game. And I can tell you, I don't see the Chinese flinching on this thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really don't because they've got a lot to lose on the world stage. And I think they also see some opportunities with America doing this.
Well, also, if you look at the China-made vehicles that are now throughout the entire world except in North America, but they are selling cars at leaps and bounds all over, the world and in so many countries.
I'm doing some work right now overseas with a company in an area where the Chinese vehicles have come in.
Yeah.
And in the last 4 years, they've taken about a 25% market share, where 4 years ago they had none.
Right.
So that just tells you about those. And those products are pretty darn good. And again, North America doesn't have those.
That's right.
So, and I've learned a lot about the Chinese product. And the Chinese are very, very aggressive, whether it's incentives or getting those dealerships open. They're looking to make the deal.
Yeah.
What you don't know is who's really driving the conversation. Look, Elon Musk has thrown up all over the tariffs. Okay?
Yeah.
He has thrown up all over, and he's very vocal about it. And I give him a lot of credit sitting in the White House. He's had some choice words for Navarro.
Okay? Right. We're watching this fight unfold here between these two major players, and they both have the president's ear.
Yes. And look, I don't like the way we've cut the federal government. Now, does the federal government need to be cut? Yes. I think the slash and burn approach was not the right thing.
Right.
I think the object of the story, which is to get it to be smaller, is right.
Right.
It could have been a lot more structured and organized.
Yeah.
But, look, Musk is onto something there for sure.
Yeah.
But Musk is a really smart guy. And I think that if you're going to listen to anybody, I wouldn't be listening to Navarro, by the way, the Harvard PhD. I love the way that comes across, right? I was never built anything. But look, Musk has got a point, and I would not be surprised if Musk is in his ear. Look, Musk is pushy. He's aggressive.
Yeah.
And I don't really think he cares that much what the president thinks himself because he doesn't need this job.
Right.
So in a way, I'm kind of glad that he is speaking out. I am a lot disappointed with a lot of leadership in the Senate and the House, especially in the Senate. You're going to give up your authority on the whole tariffs and on this whole area.
Yeah.
And it's good to see that Mitch McConnell finally stood up for something. Well, it's questionable, in the past what he stood up for. But it's good to see now that some of the Grassley's waking up, that some of these senators are waking up.
Yeah.
Again, we need to fix the trade balance.
Yeah.
But let's be thoughtful about it.
Yep.
That's the key. Be thoughtful. Don't send everybody into a tizzy. Look, the market's up almost 3,000 today. I mean, this is nuts. It's nuts. It's unbelievable.
Really I know. There's no question about it. And
so, by the way, I hope Elon Musk continues to speak out because I do believe the president listens to him.
Yeah.
And again, none of us in the dealer world might love everything he does, but clearly he's got a good point of view. And by the way, how about the crazy thing where you've got the head of the auto unions?
Yeah, I know.
The tariffs are good.
Unbelievable.
Now, I think he does believe that, but I'm sure he's not appreciating the chaos when you hear that Stellantis, could eliminate 900 jobs.
Yeah, that's right.
Or all those other things.
That's right.
Again, it's about doing this thoughtfully and about looking at it. But I think the big game right now is with China.
Yeah, for sure. There's no question. And by the way, he's increased that tariff. He said not only are we not giving them a 90-day reprieve here, but we're going to increase China's tariff. So he's taking this thing on in a big way. It's crazy. And who would have ever thought, if you asked me, 3 months ago or even 4 months ago, would we see Democrats burning Teslas and Republicans supporting Teslas right on the front lawn of the White House where Donald Trump's helping to sell them? I mean, it's 6 months ago he was against Teslas and all things EV. It's just the world has turned upside down.
Wait a minute. He's selling Teslas. He's helping sell Teslas, but he doesn't want to build the infrastructure system for electric vehicles. And you don't want to give the credit. It's crazy. And that's what it is. It's chaos.
It is.
And I just wish I knew of someone who is going to get it under control.
Yeah.
So we in the auto community and the other retail community could start to think about, what do we really want to look like when this is all done?
That's right. Yeah. And I think no, go ahead.
Yeah. And what I was going to say is, and again, we got to address China.
I know.
Because, a standoff with China is not healthy for anybody in the world.
I know. That's the 900-pound gorilla right there. Right?
Absolutely.
That we have to satisfy some way. Getting back to what you were talking about with the Senate, and we need, some senators and congressmen to step up. But at the end of the day, unless you are retiring like Mitch McConnell, you're up for re-election. If you go against Donald Trump, you're done, right? And he knows that.
Yeah, what's really sad is we elect these people to do a job.
Yeah.
Okay? So I wonder how many of these folks would really be in business themselves. Yeah. They've made politics a full-time job.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And you really wonder, what they really would be doing if they weren't afraid.
That's a good point.
Because they have an obligation to the voters. And by the way, it's on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, of course.
There is craziness on both sides of the aisle.
That's right.
And by the way, what happened to the days of compromise and doing what was best for the American public and not having this harsh thing, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat?
I can't even remember those days. I'm 63. I can't even remember those days.
Yeah, well, it's hard to, but think about it. Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill politically agreed about nothing, but they knew how to compromise.
Yes, they did.
Bill Clinton knew how to compromise, with the Republicans back then.
Yeah, well, even with Newt though, it took a government shutdown to negotiate with Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich, if you remember.
But they figured it out.
Yeah.
But where is the compromise?
Yeah.
And by the way, neither side is right about everything.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay?
That's right.
Neither side is right about everything.
That's right.
But what happened to working for the American consumer, the American worker, the industry that we're in? And, it's not all good one way or it's not all good the other way.
Yeah.
And then here's what's going to happen. We're going to have midterm elections, and who knows how this thing will all swing.
That's right.
But it's about time they sit down like adults.
Yeah.
And they do what's right for us and not worry about getting reelected.
That's right.
I know that's harder to say, but I've always been outspoken. And you know what? Back then at AutoNation, if Mike Jackson wanted to fire me because I had an opinion, amen to that. But I really would like to see some people, step up.
Yeah.
The one person is the senator from Alaska, Murkowski.
Yeah.
She seems to tell everybody she doesn't really care. She's going to do what she thinks is best for Alaska.
Yeah.
And I give her a lot of credit.
Of course. And now, we've got Bernie Moreno, who's a car guy, owned 15 car dealerships. He's a senator out of Ohio. And I had the pleasure of interviewing him on the show.
I watched his interview.
Yeah. And he seems to think that this is the way to go. This is going to work. We just got to trust the president in what he's doing. And at the end of the day, we're going to be bringing more jobs back to the U.S. and we're going to get this playing field, so to speak, out there in terms of tariffs level, with the other countries.
I watched the interview, and I have a lot of questions for the senator.
Yeah.
That would take the rest of the day to go through those questions.
Yeah.
I mean, let's remember, you don't build a plant in 60 days.
That's right.
You have to staff a plant.
Yeah.
You got to hire people to be in a plant.
Oh, it's a 2 or 3 or 4 year project.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's a changing market. And if you don't have a consistent program and you don't have consistency and you operate in chaos, how are you going to build a plant?
Yeah.
And then there's the whole issue of hiring. America right now is squeezed for workers as it is.
Yeah, good point.
So, I watched the senator's interview. I think I have a lot of questions for the senator, but
send him in to me. Send him in because I'll be interviewing him again.
Oh yeah, I'll be more than glad to do that. Yeah,
I will ask him. I will ask him. Absolutely.
I'll send him to you, Jim.
Please do.
I don't think he would really care because I don't vote in Ohio anyway. I'm a voter down here.
He's actually a great guy. I mean, I do like him.
Yes, he's a good guy.
I enjoy his company.
He's very likable.
Listen, at the end of the day, it's great that we've got somebody like Bernie that at least understands the car business, enough to say, hey, yay or nay on some of these things, Maybe his hands are tied in some regard on some issues, but it's at least nice having somebody in there,
Yeah, but by the way, he just got elected. He's got 6 years, right?
Yes.
And by the way, Donald Trump won't be there in 6 years. So
that's right. Well, you say that, but I think he's going for a third term, the way he's talking.
Well, I'm sure there are many people, Republicans and Democrats, who will follow the Constitution.
Yes.
But again, the senator has the open playing field because he's got 5 years and however many months ahead of him.
Yeah, that's right.
And quite frankly, he could speak up, but maybe those are his real opinions and those really what he believes. And I respect that, and I hope he does a great job representing Ohio, and I hope he does even a better job representing the auto industry.
Yeah. Right before this interview, I was watching from our television in the main studio here, where Roger Penske was with Donald Trump on the front lawn, and he had all of his race cars there. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy's got 300 car dealerships. I wonder if he whispers in his ear and says, "Hey, what are you doing on the tariffs?" Right?
Knowing Roger, he clearly couldn't help himself probably to say something.
Yeah.
Look, Roger's one of the greatest retailers.
Oh, there's no question. And a great guy.
One of the great, not only a great guy, great retailer.
Yep.
He's done incredible things for auto racing.
Yeah.
He's fabulous. I'm sure he had a moment where he might have said one thing or the other. Yeah. But I told you that, as much as a lot of auto dealers don't like Elon Musk, he definitely has a point of view, and I give him a lot of credit for coming out and talking about it.
That's right. That's right. No question about it. Marc Cannon, former AutoNation executive and founder of MGC2 Marketing. Thank you so much for stopping by CBT News. I know there's a lot of people that first know you in the business and want to hear from you on this because your voice is valuable. So thank you so much.
Hey, Jim, it's always great to see you. Thanks.
Great. Thanks.
Thanks for watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick. Tariff talks across the auto industry. We're not just reporting, we're leading the conversation. Catch the smartest takes and the sharpest minds only on CBT News.